Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, just wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostrowski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
What is going on, everybody? It is 8 Eastern, 7 Central on a Thursday night. That can only mean one thing. It is now time for the Big O Show here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostrowski. I am joined tonight by my good friend, who I just got to spend some time with in Buffalo. We had a great time, Mr. John Fina. He's with us tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit. I don't know, man. John and I were talking off air. I don't think we have much to talk about, but we might find a few things to get into tonight. But as always, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 2,000. Let's see how many likes we can get for this episode. Let me see, get to 500. And also, if you're on Facebook Live or X, hop over to YouTube and jump in the comments like our friends do over there, Richard Rush, Maggie, Tracy, and the likes. And hop on in and join with us because we got a big show to talk about tonight. And we're going to talk about injuries right off the bat. I know we called it Exam 2. We're going to talk a little bit about that Pittsburgh Steelers and Bills matchup in Pittsburgh on Saturday night. But, John, we got a lot of things going on right now. We got some pretty big news coming out of One Bills Drive.
Man, it's enough to make the knees weak, Jerry O. Bills Mafia is kind of shaken, and that a few people are reacting and saying, all is not lost. Let's calm down. Attrition is part of the game, But when it's your team, when you're invested, man, you see a guy like Milano go down, and for possibly the entire season, but certainly most of the season, you just get a visceral reaction, right? I mean, the Buffalo Bills are that thing that, you get up, it's part of your identity. And when part of that identity is damaged, you feel hurt, man. But we'll dig into that. Let's chat it up, man. I know everybody's kind of feeling it out there. And, Jerry and I are feeling it too. We'll give you a little bit of our perspective, maybe give you a little balance to it, and maybe provide, hopefully, a little hope, or if you're not that kind of person, maybe we'll create a little bit more fear in you.
And what John's talking about, obviously, Matt Milano today out for a significant amount of time with a torn biceps, a biceps injury that happened in practice a few days ago in tackling drills. Sean McDermott commented on it today. Obviously, Milano crushed, the team crushed, just because of how much time he put in to get back from that tibial plateau fracture that he's already had to deal with. My profession is not obviously podcasting or vidcasting. I sell sports implants. I sell medical implants. We work with orthopedic doctors, a lot of soft tissue stuff. So the injury that Milano has, we repair weekly, and I can get into that in a little bit and kind of give you a little bit of insight what it takes to fix that injury. And then also I spoke with a good doctor friend of mine today and kind of have a time frame as far as when we might expect to see Milano back. Other news with the Buffalo Bills today, Chase Claypool, the wide receiver, was released with an injury settlement. That frees up Claypool to go elsewhere to another team, but it also frees Claypool to be re-signed back to the Buffalo Bills if they wish to bring him back to get him on the active roster during the season. So he's a vested veteran. If he's on the IR, in preseason, he'd have to be on the entire year. By releasing him with a settlement, if he clears waivers, doesn't sign elsewhere, it does give the Bills a chance to bring him back. But lots and lots of injuries right now. The Bills had a ton of injuries today down in Pittsburgh with their joint practice with the Steelers. Players that did not participate today, obviously Milano, but also wide receiver Lawrence Keys, wide receiver Curtis Samuel, tight end Dawson Knox dealing with a groin and an ankle, OL Travis Clayton, who's fought a shoulder all preseason, defensive end Casey Toohill has a groin, linebacker Nicholas Morrow, I believe, has a core injury, linebacker Braylon Spector He has a calf injury, and then safety Mike Edwards and Cole Bishop, who've been on that list for quite some time. But I ask you this, John, we hear the devastating news about Matt Milano, and the first thing we say is, okay, what about the backups? Obviously, Dorian Williams seems to be that guy. He's going to have to grow up quickly. But then you look at the other guys like a Nicholas Morrow and also Balin Spector, they're banged up in the backups as well. I mean, that is a position I was worried about it last week. I talked about it, and it's coming to fruition. They're really, really thin at linebacker.
Jerry, I share your concern. All right. I don't have any questions about Dorian Williams. I've been a fan since day one. I think he's going to be a pleasant surprise, just like Bernard was, which I also predicted. Thank you. But it does cause concern to have the next 2-3 guys behind him a little backed up. I think one of the things that psychologically, I think a lot of fans may not be able to grasp is when you take a key player like that out, you lose the experience, you lose the leadership, but you also sometimes create some question marks among the other players about what more can I do? Like, and if something bad happens, a large gain, what have you, the defense is struggling in a game, you start thinking it's this one position, they're not ready, I have to do something else. And then by overplaying or overcompensation, you cause another problem. So, the guys have to be really steely-eyed and mentally fit, really to just kind of believe that the next man up can do it, so they don't compromise their responsibilities. So there's a huge mental, psychological aspect to it that ripples through the rest of the team. It might even go to the other side of the ball. We got to score more, only because we're concerned. We don't want to keep the defense on the field too long. There's a rash of injuries at linebacker. We got to sustain drives. We got to convert all of our drives, right? So, that is a completely different aspect, a different way to look at it than just the mere physical aspect of it. But it does cause me concern. I think that, Brandon Beane and McDermott are going to react. Jerry, and I'm curious to ask you, what do you think the plan will be?
Well, first and foremost, this is Dorian Williams' show. This is why he was a third-round pick last year.
100%.
I got the chance to see Dorian Williams play multiple times. I got to see him play live. Dorian Williams is an elite athlete at linebacker. He's one of the best athletes at linebacker in the league. Dorian Williams is elite going downhill. He has the slash ability that Bernard has. He can make big plays behind the line of scrimmage. He has that type of ability. Dorian Williams is behind in the pass coverage area. He's got to get better at coverage. And a lot of it is, I think his brain and his body haven't timed up yet with his eyes. He still sees things and believes everything he sees, too much going on, and he can get himself out of position because he's so athletic. Now, that also, conversely, helps him because a lot of times he can make plays because he is so fast and has so much speed. I think over the next few weeks with him, it's really going to be a big-time deal for Bobby Babich Jr. and also McDermott to get him up to speed to where he's understanding those coverage concepts a little bit better. But as far as an athlete, as far as being able to play in the league and speed and downhill ability, I mean, he is a phenomenal player. And, we all came in the league at some point. We all had things we had to work on, right? Even the great – I remember playing Urlacher his first year, John. He was lost. But now he's in the Hall of Fame, right? So you just have to put guys in the fire to have them learn. And I think it's his show. And then we figure out is it Deion Jones? Is Morrow the guy? Is it Spector? Where do we fill in from there? And where do we go? So,
And do we wait for cuts, Jerry?
Right. I think so.
Do we look to spend that $11 million? That'd be burning a hole in my pocket.
I think so. And I think this is a big testament why Beane did this. I think Bills fans can learn. This is why you have a stockpile of cash, even though it's not huge money. It's enough money that you can get a difference maker at a position that you need help at. And right now that linebacker room needs help. And like I said, I mean, Morrow, for all the things he's done well, I mean, he went to an Eagles team last year that needed linebackers badly and got released. He's bounced around. You know, we talk about Deion Jones, fabulous season in Atlanta, had the shoulder injury, went to Cleveland, and it's kind of, you know, fallen to the wayside a little bit as far as his trajectory. So there are some question marks. And if there's guys out there that I know there's a few guys that are out there now that are available, but I think they probably stand pat. They see what they have, and then they go from there. But to talk about Milano a little bit, John, you know, and I'm going to get into the injury thing here in a second, but I'm going to ask you this. I have my own opinions, obviously, you know, because my locker was right next to yours. But this being my show, I'm going to ask you this question, just because you're going to hear this phrase a million times, right? What do we hear all the time? Injury happens, next man up, right? Just, do you think that is really a valid thing? Do you think that the team's like, yeah, okay, let's go, Dorian, we're going to ride? I mean, they did win 6 games last year without Matt Milano in a row after that injury at Jacksonville. How do you feel about the whole next man up phenomenon?
My short answer is, whether it's right, wrong, and different, whether you tell yourself that to make yourself feel good, it's the reality. It's the reality of being a GM and a head coach that look around their team and they're building position groups, and they're always saying, if this guy goes down, who's the right fit for right fit for this position? And you've got to build in with that in mind. So next man up, it's a reality. There's only 1,600 players on active rosters in the team during a season, right? I mean, it's not a lot of guys. So you got to think there's enough guys on the street that you can fill the dike with if you have to. But you always want to look to that room. You always want to look to the guys that you hired and said, we hired you to do this job. We have the confidence in you. And I think the more that confidence is effectively conveyed and built into the character of that player, the better they will perform on the field. But I'm a believer. I am a believer in next man up. Clearly the hardest position in the NFL now to say that too is the quarterback position, but we see some flares even there every year, right? We see nobodies every year stepping in and taking the helm for 2, 3, 4 games. Now, this is a much longer assignment. You know, Williams has got to be the guy for a full 17 slate, right? But Jerry, I just don't remember seeing the types of injuries in preseason that we are seeing nowadays. I mean, across the league, a lot of really, well, they're not career-ending anymore, but season-ending injuries.
Right. You know, I think you're right, John. I mean, right now, Bills Mafia wants to, and you see it across. I mean, we're cursed. We have these injury issues, all these different things. You know, we can never have nice things, all that stuff. And I tell the Mafia this is happening league-wide with 32 teams. There are devastating injuries across the board. There are guys that are going to be out for timely for long periods of time. There's some guys that are out for the year already. When it's becoming more of an issue because of the amount of training that the players get and how finely tuned they are. I truly believe that, John. I just think that we have got our players' bodies.
So you're going with the crystal vase rather than the Big Mac theory,
right? No,
lay off a little, live a little, and
right. I mean, I remember Monty Brown. Okay, I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was in Rusty Jones's office. Monty Brown's in there, and Monty was a huge dude, and he was always pulling something. And Rusty looks at him and goes, "Monty, every day when you drive home, every fast food restaurant you drive by, you pull in and order 2 things." And he goes, "And when you come back to the stadium, you do the same thing." And then he turns and looks at me and goes, "I wasn't talking to you."
Well, I'll tell you, I took Rusty's advice on that, man. Remember Marv Levy's practices? The work day would end around 4:00, and dinner wasn't going to be about till 7:30 or 7:45. Right. And I hit that McDonald's or the Oh hell, I can't think of it. Not Whataburger. We don't have that in Buffalo, but Burger King, right?
Right.
And it couldn't just be the supersized value meal. I had to throw an extra burger or a chicken sandwich on top of that because there was no way I was going to last until 3:00 or another 3
Well,
hours till dinner.
I was rolling deep to Cheektowaga, so I was stopping at the Polish Villa on Thursday night to get that Polish platter special, man. A couple pierogies, a golubki, some kielbasa. It was wonderful. But, I think what we're talking about, we digress, but
No, you were high. They're a little strung tight, right? You
right,
string
we're
your
getting
guitar
so
too
big and
tight.
strong that a human tendon can only take so much force, right? And this is in Matt Milano's case. Without seeing the MRI and knowing exactly what it is, I would imagine it's a distal biceps tear, which is there is a tendon that comes off the biceps that goes into the radius in the lower arm, which allows the biceps to move the lower arm up and down. That tendon ruptures. So then what the doctor does, he will pull that tendon down. He will put some suture on it. He'll drill a hole in the radius and pass that tendon back through that hole and fixate it on the other side of the radius with a metal button. And that button holds the tension because you have to have some sort of tension so you can get that arm to move up and down. That's probably the surgery that will take place. It's something that we do weekly with my job, with what I do. And talking to a local orthopedic that we work with all the time, he said that a very safe time frame or a good time frame is usually 4 months. And if you think about what McDermott and the others said, they're looking for a December return, a possible December return. That would be that 4-month period. So more than likely this is one of those things where you can't wait, John, because it's almost like a window shade when you kind of pull it down and it goes up on its own. When that thing tears and releases, it rolls all the way up into the upper arm. If you don't pull it down and fix it right away, it scars up and fixates to the muscle belly, and then you have to fish it out. Then you get tendon damage. You might have to use a cadaver tendon to fix it. So there's so many complications with not fixing it. Now, if there's a few games left and you're trying to get through a few games, then maybe you can gut it out. But at the beginning of the season, it's just not something you want to mess with.
Jerry, I was hoping for some diagrams, maybe a short YouTube video. Get it nice and bloody on the overreaction with Jerry Ostrowski, the Big O
right.
show.
Well, hey, we appreciate y'all.
The 4-month timeline, right? That's got to include rebuild of the muscle time, getting fit, maintaining all the other strength. You're going to get a significant amount of atrophy in that arm, not just in the biceps, but you're going to get it in, the tricep. You're going to get it into the forearm strength, grip strength, everything included, right? I mean, God, we used to say the only thing worse than being the only thing worse than playing is not playing, or what was the expression we used? I'm a little haven't been feeling well, so I don't have my expressions down pat, right? But God, it's a tough run for Matt, and it's a tough run right now as you look around. I don't particularly worry about little nicks and cuts early in camp, right? Because you get a little downtime, you get to get well, but we're closing in pretty quick here, right? To kick off.
Yeah. Hey, twitchy dudes get twitchy type injuries, and this is a twitchy type injury. Real quick, today the Buffalo Bills practiced down in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. Pretty, pretty spirited practice. McDermott was pretty stern right off the bat. You fight, you're out. So don't think we had any dust-ups today, which was nice. It also helps when the head coach of both teams used to play college football together at the same position. They have a little bit different relationship than other teams. But we did hear something else besides the Milano deal that was a little bit weird and disturbing. But Kaiir Elam got pulled out of practice once, shoulder pads off, helmet off, put him back on, went back in, got pulled off again, and then was on the sidelines receiving oxygen. We've had no word of exactly what he was dealing with. Maybe we'll get something later on. But obviously, if Kaiir Elam, who's a huge piece of that puzzle on defense as the third cornerback, goes down, then you've got guys like Jamarcus Ingram, Kyron Brown, and Corey Couch that can probably, step in and try to take over. But again, another guy, I mean, they just kind of keep coming and coming, John.
Yeah, and you know what? It really makes the strategy for the Bills defense in this upcoming preseason game rather dynamic, right? I mean, if you're a young guy right now, and I hate to dismiss the injuries to the guys that are not going to be playing or have limited involvement in the next game, but this is your opportunity, right?
Right.
Anybody left on the roster that's starting to look around and say, "Oh my God, I'm on the cut list." You get into that playbook, you get in the film room, you take good care of yourself, get that extra sleep, because one big play in the preseason, one very impressive movement can make the difference for you making the team or not over your peer, over the other guy, right?
Right.
There's 3, 4, 5 cornerbacks that are vying for one roster spot or two. And that's the exciting part about the preseason when you're a young, talented guy. And I think that room has a lot of talent in it, especially at cornerback. Safety and linebacker are a little concerning right now. So the strategy for the preseason game, obviously, is going to be huge rotations, younger guys. Which, Jerry, do you think that hurts in the how do we keep them on the practice squad if they're getting a lot of reps and they're getting seen, but yet we can't play other guys out there?
I don't think you can worry about it. If they're good enough to make your team, then they make your team. If you're going to cut them, then you're willing to allow them to go somewhere else. I mean, it's just the way I look at it. I think that you're going to see a ton of guys play. I mean, this is one of those deals now, because you've got an injury like Milano, you got some other injuries at safety. They're going to really be careful with some of these. I would expect Dorian Williams to play a lot, but I also expect them to watch him and protect him. Same thing in the back end with DeMar Hamlin, who we heard was on the sidelines today as well. He got pulled out. So I think you have to be really, really careful with your guys because you've lost that depth. But, this is a time of great opportunity for these guys on this roster. And future 8, 9, 10-year players, the vets in the league, are bred out of situations like this. There are guys that we're not even talking about that are going to all of a sudden make it. And if they don't make it with the Bills, they might make it with another team. But it's situations like this, because right now, going into this preseason game, John, on Saturday night, there are immense amounts of opportunities for guys to make a name for themselves and make this roster.
No question about it. No question about it. And the Steelers have a lot to prove too, right?
Right.
Offensively, I feel pretty good. I never look at the scoring of preseason games, right? You don't want to leave 33 up to the other team as a defense, but there's going to be a significant amount of implied pressure on the defensive guys that are out there, at least assignment, performance. The score may end up being what the score is, but I think they need to see vast improvement in technique. And, that's where coaching and that's where evaluation of talent never ends. The coaching job, it isn't just what you see on the sideline, and it isn't just what you see in the meeting room. I mean, it's hours and hours afterward. It's the guys cutting up the film and then the coaches going in and studying it. So a huge time of opportunity, a huge time of continued evaluation of the guys in your room. And a lot to decide, a lot to decipher from position groups on the defense.
Exactly. And, John, I always felt that when we were in preseason, you're tired, you're worn out, but everybody else on the other team's tired and worn out too. I always felt the hardest part about the preseason was the mind, was getting the mind, ready and getting sharp to play, because as the great Karl Mach would say, the mind is a terrible thing, right?
I agree with
and
that.
it is. And what I'd like to see out of this game, and we'll talk a little bit about this game. It's Saturday night down in Pittsburgh, 7 p.m. Eastern. Pittsburgh
4 p.m. Pacific.
Yes, Pittsburgh's going to start Russell Wilson. He'll get the first 4 series of the game, so he'll get his first opportunity this preseason. But when I look at the team after last game last week against the Bears, and yes, I'm like you, John. I'm not jumping out the window because of that performance. But what I would like to see is some sort of steady increase in what you talked about earlier. Proper technique, finishing plays, elimination of pre-snap penalties. We're not game planning, man. So there's going to be things that the other team does that gets us, and vice versa. But I'd like to see things cleaned up and become efficient, at least in week 2, as we build towards the beginning of the season. Your thoughts on that?
Well, my hope is that the pre-snap penalties are part of what I hope this team evolves into with Joe Brady. I think that the teams that are having the greatest success have obviously very good weapons, but an enormous amount of creativity. And part of that creativity requires you to have multiple sets, a lot of motion, and those things take time. Those things take timing as well. Communication, timing, deep understanding. The playbook only gets bigger the more you do things like that, right? It doesn't get any smaller. These playbooks are vast. And if you are a thoughtful and creative offensive coordinator, then you have to practice the entire library in the preseason so that when you go play the Pittsburgh Steelers in the regular season, this is what exposes them, as opposed to playing the New England Patriots, where you're going to have a different variety of sets this week, little different route trees from various formations. So those kinds of things don't quite bother me as long as they are in the philosophy of the overall goal.
I agree 100%. And I think if I'm Sean McDermott, the first thing I tell my football team is that, men, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here. Let's hit the field and take advantage of it, because I think that there's a bunch of guys on this team that just have immense opportunities. And I think that to kind of go back to the Milano situation, I do agree with, and I can't remember who it was earlier in the show, put on the comments that they won 6 games in a row without Matt Milano. And yes, I want Matt Milano to play. I want him to play. He's a hell of a player, tremendous player. But I think we can absorb it for a while. We've absorbed it before. The other guy, I'm not so sure about. I don't know if we have somebody for Terrell Bernard if he was to have issues. So,
hey, Jerry, don't speak it into existence, man. I got some wood around here somewhere. I know you do. We're going to be banging wood after this this call, right? After the show, I'm going to be saying a little mini prayer.
But you know what? There's a bunch of veterans in that room that are ready to bring some young guys into the group and put their arms around them and get them going and get them ready to play some really good football. And I think that's what we're going to see. But hey, again, crazy news out of One Bills Drive today. Matt Milano out for an extended period of time. Chase Claypool put on the IR, and then now he has an injury settlement. He has been released. We can bring him back at some point if he does not go to another team. And we had practice today down in Pittsburgh. Hamlin in and out. Elam in and out. Pretty spirited workouts, but nothing too crazy. And then we got the preseason game on Saturday night. John, I appreciate you coming in to join me here on the Big O Show this Thursday. And we got our fellas stepping up tomorrow night. If these walls could talk, they'll be on. I think I want to say I saw something about Josh Stamer, John Fina, if you remember that name from a long time ago.
Whoa.
Josh Stamer, a guy that I know because we had the same agent when we played.
Hey, Jerry, there's a lot going on. Where would you go to get all information Bills? Would you go to overreactionbuffalo.com, where all the important Bills articles are being categorized and put out there for us? So you can follow all these injury updates. You can follow player updates, performance updates. Overreactionbuffalo.com, your source for all things Buffalo Bills related. Shout out to Joe Miller for coordinating the site. Right. Everybody, if you like the show, please tell a friend, send them the link, tell them to subscribe, or you're going to come wake them up in the middle of the night. All right.
Exactly.
It's a blast hanging out with you, Jerry. I don't love the premise of this show. I just love Matt Milano. It's killing me. Didn't make me feel any better as I was feeling ill today, but we're all, say a prayer for all of our loved ones, say a prayer for Matt's successful surgery. And dude, it's good. It was great hanging out with you in Buffalo. I really enjoyed our time. We spent a lot of time in the car. We ate a lot of wings driving around Buffalo. Took Jerry to the Remedy House on the west side. Got him a great cup of coffee and pastry.
Great breakfast
and
sandwich.
a breakfast sandwich. Just hung out. It was fantastic.
It was very much like old times, driving around Buffalo, going to places to eat.
Yeah, and drinking. Yeah,
drinking.
What a couple of motley fools we are, man. Good times, dude.
Yep, I appreciate it. We had a blast, John, up there. We'll do it again soon. But again, or as always, I'm the Big O Jerry Ostrowski. He's John Fina. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. One love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
I'm still the same.